Hi, my name is Nate Soderstrom with the Capital Forum. I'm here today with Melissa Maxman. Melissa is co-chair of the Antitrust Practice Group at Cozen O'Connor. Melissa, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm delighted to be here.
Today we're going to discuss antitrust in sports law. And in particular, we were discussing this before we started. MLB is the only major sports league, professional sports league, with an actual antitrust exemption.
That's correct.
How did that come about, and how does that kind of work in practice?
It came about more as a, forgive me, I've got a little bit of a sore throat. It came about more as a sociological and political move than anything else. Obviously, if there's an exemption to the Sherman Act, Congress had to pass it. It's by statute. And it was done, I can't remember precisely what year, but a number of years ago. And baseball being America's sport, there was a fear that without an exemption from the antitrust laws, they wouldn't be able to expand as they thought they should. This was long before television. And so Congress was persuaded to pass a law exempting baseball. As things have changed over the years, as with everything with Major League sports of any kind, and also college sports, as with the advent of television, with the advent of the money that comes in from television, with the advent of the internet and sports merchandise marketing and everything else, there are some today who are questioning the need for and the usefulness, the utility now of baseball's exemption.
It's understandable. So I imagine that the NBA, the NFL would very much like an exemption along these lines.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I don't have a crystal ball, but I don't see any legislation passing anytime soon.
And I think that certainly makes sense. Now that said, that it was the city of San Jose who attempted to sue Major League Baseball on antitrust grounds.
Well, just recently. And you know, antitrust, as I'm sure everybody who's watching this knows, is largely based on economic motivators. Antitrust is supposed to be leveling the playing field to make sure that monopolists don't misuse even if they've got a monopoly in a legitimate way, excuse me, as Major League Baseball does, to leverage monopoly power in another area, so on, in another product market. And San Jose wants a Major League Baseball team really badly. There's a huge population growth. It's a budding economic area that actually could support a Major League Baseball team. Contrast where they were trying to recruit from, Oakland. Oakland A's have traditionally been underfunded because they don't have the stadium, they don't have the population, and a lot of people in Oakland support the San Francisco Giants. So it's an oversaturated market. So it made economic sense to a lot of people, and I don't have a strong opinion about this one way or the other, but I could understand why San Jose would want to move, and I could understand why the A's would want to move to a better market. They can make more money and be a better team and pay their players more and so on and so on.
It's all compelling.
Exactly. So, but what happened was San Jose, the owners of Major League Baseball, which are the decision makers, vote to allow a team to move. And they have repeatedly not allowed the A's to move. Right. I don't understand why entirely. I'm sure it has to do with the economic motivators of the various team owners. So San Jose got frustrated, and they sued in federal court, alleging that the MLB is a monopoly and it was abusing its market power. And they lost because, largely, very quickly actually, the court said, I can't do anything to help you because there's this exemption. You haven't, absent some horrible public policy, if, Major League Baseball said we will, won't let any African Americans play, then you would have clearly a 14th Amendment violation, but you don't have it in antitrust.
Right. And that certainly makes sense. Now, if you're an NBA team, if you're an NFL team, and you would like to leave where you're playing, you would have more options in the event the NFL or the NBA were to tell you, no, you can't do this. You could then go ahead and sue the league.
I believe it's the same. I believe that that the structure of the leagues is the same. The owners vote, but they wouldn't have an antitrust exemption if somebody sued.
Right.
Now there are other things they can. As an antitrust lawyer, I'm not sure that whether an antitrust suit would be successful absent the exemption. Right. But I can see. I think you can make a plausible argument. I think there's stronger arguments. Right. But yeah, antitrust is not available.
So, as far as the NCAA, obviously been the subject of a number of antitrust suits, and the O'Bannon case being the most notable, but a few other attacks in Penn State as well. Does the NCAA enjoy any type of protection from the antitrust laws? Do they operate, as just the kind of organization that can be sued readily under the antitrust laws? How does that work?
Well, they're frequently sued, and there's no exemption. The NCAA, as somebody who's been involved in suits against them for the better part of a couple of years now, they are a growing and changing organization. I have a lot of respect for the general counsel. I think that the NCAA, like any trade association, and again, it's composed of all of the member schools, the same way Major League Baseball is composed of the owners, the management team, or the managing entity for decision making for the organization. And the NCAA, like MLB, is completely within its rights when it is regulating time, place, and manner restrictions on team sports. Because absent some organization, the University of Michigan could be, football team could be scheduled to play both Notre Dame and the University of Texas on the same day. I'm making that up, obviously. So you need time, place, and manner restrictions, and you need an organizational structure to ensure that games go off on time and that the play remains vibrant, the athletic events. Where the NCAA has gotten in trouble is when they try to oversee financially related events. So, for example, in 1984, a Supreme Court case, the Board of Regents, very important case because that is the case in which the Supreme Court of the United States said, sorry, NCAA, you are not restricting time, place, and manner if you're telling individual schools that they may, how many TV appearances they may make in any given period of time, because it restricts the income to those schools. And because it's so tied to income, if you're restricting income issues, that's arguably an antitrust violation.
So it's time, place, and manner.
Correct.
The NCAA. Okay.
Correct.
And
there's another very famous case in which the NCAA tried to limit the salaries that assistant coaches could be paid, and that was also struck down. But it never made it to the Supreme Court.
Okay. As far as the O'Bannon case, is that a game changer? Is that actually going to be more limited in its impact? Well, I know the impact of that case probably won't be felt for months or years.
Well, it's interesting. I think the NCAA recognizes that it's on its heels. Last year at this time when I talked about this case, we didn't have a decision yet. Judge Wilkin in the Northern District of California indeed has ruled, issued an injunction against the NCAA from, excuse me, from enforcing its rules that players cannot be paid anything. Now, she certified an injunctive relief class. She did not certify a damages class because she felt that it was unmanageable to figure out how many damages a Division I basketball player or a Division I football player.
This would have been like a retroactive application of
Exactly.
Okay.
This is going forward. Now, it's up in the Ninth Circuit. It's been briefed. It was argued March 17th. We're waiting for a decision. Okay. I think betting money is, although obviously you can never tell, betting money is that the Ninth Circuit will affirm. It was a well-written decision, I thought. Competing groups of antitrust law professors actually have filed briefs in support of and against the NCAA.
So arguments on both sides.
Exactly. I think the big fear is that it'll go up to the Supreme Court because the composition of the Supreme Court, it's very hard to tell how they would come out. Now, there are other suits percolating through, but the NCAA is making some changes already in how it does business, and it's indicating that it could go further. I don't know that the NCAA wants to make this its premier case, that they want to be.
It's Waterloo.
Exactly. It's a target. It's a bellwether case.
So my understanding on the injunction is, and I may be misstating this, but there was players could be compensated, but up to a certain level. I believe it was $5,000. Is that a fair way to describe it at a kind of a high level, or is that?
Well,
I mean, it's a lot of money. But,
yes and no. I mean, prior to the injunction, players could not be compensated. There were certain rules that you could only give a player a one-year scholarship. Players were having all kinds of very serious issues. For example, there are horror stories, the Parade of Horribles, about a South Central LA kid who has been trained to be an NBA basketball player, goes to a fabulous school, gets a scholarship. His mom dies, or his mom gets ill, and he doesn't have the money to travel home to see her, and nobody's allowed to pay for it.
Right. Or parents being able to go watch their kids
Exactly.
play in the...
Or, I mean, and they weren't eating enough. I mean,
Right.
there was restrictions on how much you could feed them. Apparently you could give them snacks, but not a meal. And a bagel is a snack, but a bagel with cream cheese is a meal. These are top athletes, they're very large. And they literally were undernourished, and nobody could give them food, and they have no money to go get it.
Right.
So, and they're not allowed to work.
Right.
So they can't earn money to go get it.
So these are sympathetic plaintiffs.
Exactly. The issue becomes how much should they be compensated and maintain this amateurism ideal.
Right.
And a lot of people who have looked hard at this and are trying to figure out a fair way to compensate athletes, and also medical issues are huge. Athletes that have, they break their leg, they get pins in their leg, they therefore cannot play professionally. They have future medical issues. Once they're out of school, they're not covered. So there's some really bad stories. The issue is, if you just pay them, then it's a free-for-all, and it will become a professional sport.
And that's the NCAA's argument, right?
Exactly.
It would basically ruin college sports.
Right. Now, we, in the O'Bannon case, actually did an empirical study and learned that nobody would care whether the college players were, whether they were compensated or not. But interestingly enough, there was a difference in race, and there was a difference in how much you watched Division I college sports,
Okay.
which governed how willing you were to see them compensated. But I think probably there's a compromise there, which is putting money aside for them. First of all, not restricting scholarships to just 1 year, because if you get hurt after your first year, you're SOL.
Oh, right.
But second of all, putting money aside for the students after they graduate, so you're not paying them now, but they get a portion of revenues in the event that they get sick, in the event that they have medical issues, in the event that they can't play, because they're really giving up a lot of their educational opportunity. I have a slide from the O'Bannon case. It was an exhibit in which it showed the 2013 to 2014 University of Texas, the Longhorns varsity football team, and they majored in physical therapy or sports law or sports management. There was like one music major, one biomed major. Out of a roster of 50 kids, they're majoring in things that nobody's ever heard of.
It's almost impossible to juggle playing D1 football with
Exactly.
this kind of.
Exactly.
I think last question, because we're short on time. Were casual fans more open to playing players, or was it the serious fans who really objected to, as far as surveys?
Oh, okay. The fans that watched 0 games were less likely to object to players being paid.
Interesting.
It was surprising.
Yeah. Perfect. And I think that wraps up our interview with Melissa Maxman. Again, Melissa, thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.